These temperatures drop, people living on the streets are doing whatever they can to stay warm.
Your hands and your nose area gets cold and your feet, it seems like you're gonna shut down.
Living on the streets during winter isn't just uncomfortable, it can be downright dangerous. When the temperature drops below freezing, your body has to work overtime just to stay warm, kind of like a car engine struggling to start on a cold morning. Trust me, I've talked to folks who've been there, and they all say the same thing. Winter is the toughest season to survive outdoors. In places like Minnesota or Maine, temperatures can plummet to a bone-chilling minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so cold that if you throw hot water in the air, it'll turn into snow before hitting the ground. But it's not just about the temperature. Wind and wet conditions can make things even worse. Last year, over 700 homeless people died from hypothermia in the United States alone. That's more than from violence or accidents combined. The worst part? Most of these deaths could have been prevented with some basic knowledge about staying warm. And most people don't realize that being homeless in winter is like being a full-time meteorologist, survival expert, and engineer all rolled into one. You've got to know when a storm's coming, where to find shelter, and how to make the most of whatever materials you can find. I once met someone who could predict snow just by watching how squirrels behaved. Talk about street smarts. But before we get into weather watching, let's talk about the number one rule of staying warm. It's all about how you layer those clothes. For people living on the streets, layering clothes isn't just a fashion choice. It's the difference between life and death. And believe me, they've turned it into an art form. First things first, that layer closest to your skin, it needs to be tight, like your grandma's grip on her secret cookie recipe. A snug base layer traps a thin cushion of warm air against your body. When you're homeless, finding the right base layer can be tricky. But here's a hack I learned from a street-smart survivor. Those free promotional t-shirts from shelters, they're often made of synthetic materials that work perfectly. Instead of cotton, which is everywhere in donated clothing, you want anything synthetic. The goal is to move moisture away from your skin. Fun fact, your body can lose heat 25 times faster through wet clothes than dry ones. That's why experienced homeless folks have this saying, cotton is death, synthetic is breath. I've seen people trade good cotton sweaters for ratty synthetic ones. Seems crazy until you know the science. The middle layer is where things get interesting. This is your insulation zone. And when you're living rough, you get creative. I remember this clever woman at a shelter who would layer newspaper between two shirts. Yesterday's news keeps today's warmth, she joked. She'd gotten the idea from seeing how well cardboard insulated other homeless folks who slept on it. Your outer layer has one job, keeping the wind out. Wind chill is no joke. It can make a 32-degree Fahrenheit day feel like you're standing in your freezer. Many homeless people use trash bags as windbreakers. Sounds desperate, but it's actually brilliant. One guy showed me how he'd carefully cut armholes in heavy-duty garbage bags and wear them over his jacket during storms. Free Gore-Tex, he called it with a laugh. But you know what the real secret is? Creating air pockets between each layer. That trapped air becomes your personal insulation system, working better than any fancy high-tech gear. For homeless folks, this knowledge literally saves lives. And speaking of life-saving gear, let me tell you about something that's become a prized possession on the streets. I mean, those layers will save your life, but let me introduce you to what homeless folks call their silver shield, the mylar blanket. You might know them as those crinkly things marathon runners wrap themselves in, looking like baked potatoes at the finish line. But on the streets, these shiny sheets are worth their weight in gold. Back in the 1960s, NASA invented these for space missions. They only weigh about 3 ounces, but can reflect up to 90% of your body heat back to you. That's like having a tiny personal furnace wrapped around you. A homeless veteran I met called them his astronaut capes, said they work better than his old military sleeping bag. They cost about $1 each, but they can keep you alive in temperatures as low as negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Some clever folks at a shelter I visited would layer them between regular blankets. The setup looked ridiculous, like a homeless lasagna, but it trapped heat so well that even the local cops started keeping extras in their cars for emergencies. You've got to handle them carefully, though. These blankets are thinner than aluminum foil, and they'll tear if you look at them wrong. I once saw a guy try to patch his with duct tape, Ended up looking like a disco ball caught in a spider web. But here's a pro tip from the streets. If you fold them gently and store them in a sock, they'll last for weeks. The science behind these things is pretty cool too. They don't actually create heat. They just bounce your own body heat back at you like a mirror reflects light. Some people use them as makeshift tents, creating a mini greenhouse effect. One resourceful woman showed me how she'd make a sleeping bag by taping two together. My 5-star hotel suite, she joked, but she never got frostbite during Chicago's worst winter in decades. One weird trick I learned: if you're using a mylar blanket, keep moving your toes and fingers every few minutes. The blanket works so well that sometimes you can't tell if your extremities are getting too cold. But while these miracle sheets are great, they work even better with another unexpected insulator, something you might be walking past every day at the recycling bin. You'll never look at cardboard the same way again, because the homeless community calls it urban insulation, and it's actually a scientific superstar at keeping you warm. Did you know cardboard is made up of tiny air pockets sandwiched between paper? These pockets work just like the expensive insulation in your house walls. Scientists found that a single layer of cardboard can reduce heat loss by up to 40%. Pretty impressive for something people throw away every day. Dumpster diving behind furniture stores is like hitting the cardboard jackpot. Those big TV box panels are the Rolls-Royce of cardboard. Thick, sturdy, and usually clean. One smart fellow I met would collect them on dry days and stash them in plastic bags for when it rained. Better than a memory foam mattress, he'd say. And the price is right. Here's an incredible cardboard hack straight from the streets. Overlap your pieces like shingles on a roof. This technique, which I learned from an ex-construction worker living rough, creates dead air spaces that trap heat even better. He'd arrange his cardboard in these intricate patterns. Said it reminded him of laying tiles in fancy houses. From building million-dollar homes to building million-degree shelters, he'd laugh. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but his shelters were always the warmest. The only downside? Cardboard's kryptonite is water. When it gets wet, it's about as useful as a chocolate teapot. That's why experienced street survivors always keep their cardboard stash wrapped in plastic. They'll even write fake addresses on their boxes to make them look like undelivered packages. A pretty clever way to keep cleanup crews from taking them. All this cardboard talk making you hungry? Well, that's actually perfect timing, because your body's inner furnace needs fuel to keep burning. And speaking of burning calories, you won't believe how many extra ones your body uses just trying to stay warm. Because your body's basically a furnace, and when you're homeless in winter, keeping that furnace running is a daily challenge. While most people worry about eating too many calories, folks on the street face the opposite problem. Your body burns through calories faster than a teenager goes through phone data when you're exposed to cold, up to 400 extra calories per day. That's like running a 5K while sitting still, except you're just trying to survive. Hot food becomes more than just a comfort when you're living rough. It's literally survival fuel. Your body temperature rises for about an hour after eating a warm meal, which is why homeless people often time their meals carefully during the coldest parts of the day. Here's something most people don't realize. When you're homeless, getting enough calories is tough enough, but getting the right kind is even harder. Proteins and fats keep you warmer longer than sugary stuff because they take more time to digest. One street-smart survivor taught me his winter survival hack: peanut butter. It's cheap, won't freeze, lasts forever, and keeps your inner fire burning, he'd say. Many homeless folks swear by it. A jar of peanut butter can literally be a lifesaver when soup kitchens are closed. But timing is everything when food is scarce. Lots of homeless people make the mistake of rationing their food too much in winter. Your body needs constant fuel in the cold, like a car needs gas to keep running. At one shelter, I met a guy who tried to save his food by eating only once a day. Ended up in the hospital with hypothermia because his body didn't have enough energy to stay warm. Now he teaches other homeless folks about the importance of regular meals, even if they're small ones. Speaking of survival lessons, sometimes the best way to make your food last is finding the right spot to hunker down. And when you're living on the streets, picking the right location matters more than any real estate agent could tell you. Location, location, location isn't just a real estate slogan. It's a survival mantra for homeless folks in winter. The right spot can mean the difference between a bearable night and a dangerous one. And let me tell you, Some of the best places aren't what you'd expect. Take parking garages, for instance. Most people hate them because they're cold and drafty, but the concrete actually stores heat from all those car engines during the day. The upper levels stay 5 to 10 degrees warmer than the street, especially if you can find a spot near the exhaust vents. Plus, the concrete walls block the wind better than any alley. One clever woman I met called them urban caves, said they were like Florida compared to the street below. Here's a survival secret from the underground. Subway grates aren't just warm spots, they're weather forecasters. When steam rises from them, it usually means rain or snow is coming within 24 hours. The changing air pressure forces more warm air up through the vents. But the real pros know it's not just about finding warmth, it's about finding safety too. Bridges might block rain and snow, but they create wind tunnels that can drop the temperature by another 20 degrees. Bank vestibules seem cozy, but security guards usually kick you out within an hour. And those tempting steam vents, they're great until the moisture soaks through your clothes and freezes. The best spots are often hiding in plain sight. Loading docks behind restaurants stay warm from kitchen exhaust. The spaces between buildings on college campuses block wind from all directions. Even church doorways with their deep overhangs can shield you from the worst of the weather. God's front porch, as one street philosopher called it. Speaking of staying dry while sleeping rough, you wouldn't believe how creative some folks get with their makeshift sleeping bags. Because their DIY sleeping bags might sound like a craft project gone wrong, but on the streets, they're serious business. Forget those fancy $200 camping store options. Homeless folks have figured out how to make survival gear that would impress even hardcore mountaineers. Take garbage bags, for instance. Most people see trash, but experienced street survivors see waterproof sleeping bag shells. The trick is using 3 or 4 contractor-grade bags, those thick black ones that could probably survive a nuclear blast. Layer them with newspaper in between, and suddenly you've got insulation that rivals expensive camping gear. One resourceful guy showed me how he'd carefully melt small holes near the top for ventilation. Blankets are the real MVPs of DIY sleeping bags, but there's a science to using them right. Studies show that folding a blanket doubles its insulating power, but rolling it up can triple it. That's why you'll often see homeless folks with tightly rolled blankets during the day. They're not just easier to carry, they stay warmer when you unroll them at night. The real game changer comes from combining everything we've talked about. Start with those contractor bags as your outer shell. Add some cardboard for structure and insulation. Layer in newspapers. The comic section doesn't keep you any warmer, but at least it gives you something to read. Top it off with your blankets rolled in a specific way. The street veterans call this hot dog style because of how you wrap it around yourself. One former Boy Scout living on the streets taught me his ultimate sleeping bag hack. Create a neck gaiter out of an old sleeve or sock. Most people lose 40% of their body heat through their neck and head. His design kept warm air from escaping out the top of the sleeping bag while preventing moisture buildup. It's not pretty, he'd say, but neither is freezing. All this talk about keeping warm while sleeping reminds me of another winter survival essential. Those magical little packets that feel like holding a tiny sun in your hand. Yes, hand warmers, those little packets you crack open for instant heat, are like gold on the streets in winter. The chemistry behind them is pretty wild. When you shake them, you're actually starting a tiny rust party inside the packet. Yeah, rust. That same stuff that ruins your bike chain is what keeps your fingers from freezing. But here's where homeless folks get creative with their warmth strategies. Water bottles become personal heaters. Just fill them with hot water, where lots of fast food places or coffee shops will help you out if you ask nicely, and then wrap the bottles in socks or cloth, and boom, you've got a heat source that lasts for hours. One homeless person taught me how she'd place these DIY heaters strategically in her sleeping bag. One at her feet, one near her kidneys, and one tucked into a makeshift neck warmer. It's like having a heated mattress minus the electricity bill. The real pros know that timing is everything. These homemade heaters work best if you warm them up about an hour before you plan to sleep. The heat will last longer, and you won't waste precious warmth waiting for your sleeping spot to get cozy. Fun fact, your sleeping bag can be up to 15 degrees warmer with just 2 strategically placed bottles. Some clever folks even make their own reusable hand warmers using Ziploc bags filled with half water, half rubbing alcohol. When it gets cold, the mixture turns slushy and keeps a steady temperature just above freezing. Perfect for preventing frostbite. Better than those one-time use packets. But the most ingenious trick I've seen, using those free heat packs from the hospital emergency room. They're meant for muscle pain, but they work great as body warmers. Many homeless people have learned exactly what to say at the ER to get a few of these. Usually something about an old back injury acting up. Not exactly honest, but when you're choosing between a little white lie and losing fingers to frostbite, most people won't judge. Now, if you think that's clever, wait till you hear how Mother Nature herself provides some surprisingly cozy insulation, and it's completely free. You just have to know where to look. Those piles of leaves that people spend hours raking, they're basically free heat blankets. Pine needles, dry grass, even snow itself can become your allies in the fight against cold. Leaves aren't just for jumping into anymore, though that's still fun. When dry leaves break down, they actually generate a tiny bit of heat, about 2 degrees warmer than the air around them. Pack them under your cardboard or sleeping bag, and you've got nature's memory foam mattress. One guy I met would stuff trash bags full of dry leaves in autumn and store them for winter use. Comfort straight from the trees, he'd say. Pine needles are even better. They're nature's space blankets. Those sharp little needles create thousands of tiny air pockets, just like expensive synthetic insulation. They're also naturally water-resistant thanks to their waxy coating. Native Americans used to stuff their moccasins with pine needles for winter hunting trips. Today, homeless folks who know this trick stay way warmer than those who don't. And did you know that snow can actually keep you warm? Sounds crazy, right? But it's true. Packed snow is full of trapped air bubbles that work just like the insulation in your house walls. That's why animals like foxes dig snow dens when it's freezing out. Some street survivors build what they call snow walls around their sleeping spots. Keeps the wind out and the warmth in. Just remember, you want to be on the snow, not in it. But collecting nature's insulation takes work, and you've got to keep it dry. That's why the smartest homeless folks start gathering their leaves and pine needles way before the first snowfall. It's like squirrels storing nuts, because in survival situations, you've got to think ahead like the animals do. When nature's insulation isn't enough, though, there's always humanity's oldest friend, fire. But using it safely on the streets, that's a whole different story. But you know, fire's been keeping humans warm for about 400,000 years, but lighting one on the streets takes some serious street smarts. In the homeless community, safe fire making is like a sacred art. Mess it up, and you could lose more than just your eyebrows. The pros never start fires directly on concrete. It can actually explode from the heat. Instead, they create raised platforms using bricks or metal trash can lids. Some clever folks make mini fire pits inside large metal coffee cans. Fuel is everywhere if you know what to look for. Newspapers are obvious, but homeless veterans taught me that dryer lint is fire-starting gold. Those little fuzzy balls burn better than expensive camping fuel. Homeless people can collect lint from laundromat trash bins and store it in plastic bags. But here's the tricky part, keeping a fire safe and legal. Most cities have laws against open flames, so you've got to be smart about it. The secret is making what street folks call buddy fires, small controlled flames in metal containers that you can quickly extinguish if trouble comes around. One former firefighter living rough shared his top tip. Always keep your fire smaller than your forearm. Any bigger, and it could attract the wrong kind of attention or get dangerous fast. The real genius move? Using fire to heat up rocks or bricks, then wrapping them in foil or cloth once the fire's out. These makeshift heaters stay warm for hours and won't get you in trouble with the cops. Plus, you can warm up multiple rocks at once and create a ring of heat around your sleeping spot. Just don't use rocks from rivers. They can explode when heated because of trapped water. But sometimes even the warmest fire can't beat the cold alone. That's when keeping your body moving becomes your next best weapon. Moving around might seem obvious, but there's actually a science to staying warm through movement. Your muscles are like tiny furnaces. They create heat when you use them. Even small movements can raise your body temperature by a few crucial degrees. Small movements work better than big ones when you're trying to stay warm without getting sweaty. Wiggling your toes inside your shoes, rotating your ankles, clenching and unclenching your muscles, it all adds up. Your body burns an extra 100 calories per hour just from fidgeting. Some folks develop their own routines, like this former yoga teacher who do invisible exercises while standing in line at soup kitchens. But here's the real pro tip. Never stop moving completely, even when you're trying to sleep. The veterans of winter survival mastered the art of micro movements. tiny muscle contractions that keep blood flowing without waking you up fully. One woman showed me how she'd flex different muscle groups in rotation throughout the night, like a secret dance her body learned to do on its own. You might feel silly doing these moves at first, but they work, and they could save your life. Because when you're fighting the cold, pride is a luxury you can't afford. Just ask anyone who survived a winter on the streets. They'll tell you there's nothing ridiculous about staying alive. These survival tricks might seem simple, but they've saved countless lives on the streets. Remember, it's not about looking good or feeling comfortable. It's about making it through another cold night. Stay warm out there, folks.